everyone, good evening. Hope you're all doing well. I am Buddy from Team TalentZ, and I will be your host for tonight. Now, I think as youngsters, we all with high hopes and dreams need some guidance. And for that very reason, we at Team TalentZ help you connect with inspiring people so you can learn from their life experiences. For that very reason, today, we have with us Mr. Raj Gupta, who is an author, speaker, and an HR professional with 20 plus years of experience in his field. Let me just get him to join us. Hello, Mr. Gupta. How are you today?
Hi, Pari. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Would you like to say hi to our viewers?
Hi, everybody. I think it's indeed a privilege to be part of your show. Uh, Thank you, Pari.
It's a privilege to have you here. Before I dive into the actual questions, I wanted to ask you about your books. So, what inspired you to really start writing?
I think when it comes to book, I've done my post graduation in English literature, and that's the time when you know we developed this habit of writing about poetries, some snippets, etc. So so that's where I started, and I think when I look at it, I am an HR professional. So I say it like while writing is my passion, HR is a profession, and I wanted to start with HR, and in that context, I have done books across the gamut of HR. So first book I did was to bridge the gap between industry and academia, walk through HR maze, which talks about the toolkit. So when you do your MBA, etc., then it makes you industry ready. So if you go through that. Second, I did for middle management, which is caterpillar to catalyst. How do you become leader from a manager? And third, we did go and get your success, which is about leadership and entrepreneurship. But then I was talking to my daughter, and she said, "Dad, people doesn't like pure play knowledge sharing. Why don't you do it in a fictional way?" And that's where I started writing fiction. And Workplace Romance and Its Perils is one such book, and Intriguing Quest of Love is another. So this is how I've written my 5 books. And another one, Rubaru Jindagi, is a collection of poetries or poems that me and my wife have written together. So
Wow,
that's a bit about my book. Pal.
that's beautiful. Which book do you hold closest to your heart? Like, I'm sure one of them has a special place, just meant a little bit more to you.
Right. I think I would say Workplace Romance and Its Perils is closest to my heart because this was my first fiction.
Right. Of course. So earlier you mentioned that HR is your profession and writing is your passion. So do you think it is really like it is important that a person should, have a line between their profession and passion? Or would you say if you can, merge them both, they should go for it?
I think if you pursue your passion and make it a profession, nothing like it, right? Because we are supposed to bring food on the table for ourselves and our families. So everybody is not in that zone wherein they can make their passion their profession. But even if your profession is different, uh, we should try to pursue our passion in one way or another. So that's the way I think.
True. I think you definitely, like, with your experience, you later found a way to merge them both as you started writing about HR. So that is truly inspiring, I guess.
Thank you.
Um, okay, so I will jump on to the next question. What would you say is a success model for the youth to fast track their career growth?
I think, based on my experience, I put this in an equation and I call it success is equal to P into P into P. There are 3 P's, which is equal to E, which is equal to B, and which is equal to E. So let me explain it. So when I say P into P into P, so one is your performance, which is a hygiene. Then second P stands for projection. So your ability to project your performance or bring it to the attention of all the stakeholders where it matters. And third P is perception. So if you do a great job, you project it right, then there is a perception created about it in the minds of your leadership, in the minds of your managers, which leads to your exposure. As I said, P into P into P is equal to E. So that leads to your exposure. Once you are exposed, then that leads to your brand, and that brand leads to your equity. Equity is nothing but value of your words. So I can give you an example from a corporate world. Like somebody says, "Can I get a person who is good at people management?" Right now, how do you identify out of 100 people? Then you look at some names comes to your mind. So it may be because of the performance, because there would be a lot more stickiness in their teams. There would be less of attrition, high retention. Then they would have talked about it rather than sitting in the corner. What are the practices that they use to arrive at that, which would have led to the perception in the mind of the people that, oh, this person is the great guy when it comes to people manager responsibilities. So this is how you get exposure over a period of time. Your brand is built around this. So great people manager, you know and after that, when people talk to you, it's value of your words. They listen to you. There is a credibility. So that is what equity is all about.
The
Like for
trust that
example,
comes with it.
that trust. So today when you look at it, navaratna this navaratna oil, if Mr. Bachchan is not doing that advertisement, will we know about it? May or may not be. But so there is equity. There is a value of his words. When he says something, people pay attention to it. So that's where the equity comes in. In brief, success is equal to P into P into P is equal to A, which leads over a period of time leads to your brand and equity value of yours.
Wow. I think no one could have put it simpler than this. This is something we see very frequently, but we don't recognize it, the pattern that you saw. So, wow, that was great. Um, what would you say is the role of communication in the corporate world if you're going for a corporate career? How important is communication?
I think communication plays a critical role, whether corporate world or personal life. Communication, uh, if you are not doing it right, it creates problems, whether it is personal life or professional life. So when I look at role of communication, I think it's paramount. It is a skill that one should possess. It's a hygiene. But I see this is a challenge when I look at tier two, tier three colleges. I when I look at it, when I go to various colleges, and I find there is a gap when it comes to communication skills. I think in our industry there is a greater need to have some sort of classes around it and ensure that people are good in communications, because 85% of the people who graduate are not job ready, and one of the reason is lack of communication skills.
Not confident enough to put their point forward most of the
So
time.
it's a combination of all that. When you look at communication, it's not just about speaking a language. It's all about how you present to yourself. How do you how's your attitude? How confident you are in presenting your opinion. So it's a combination of all that.
That's something we see very often, that even like as students, if we see, then there are students who have done so well and know so much, but they do not have the confidence to go into an interview round and speak up, and that's where they collapse. So that is really important.
That's very important because that's what happens with tier two and tier three cities in our country as well, wherein students are when it comes to their marks, etc., they are awesome. When it comes to their intellectual stuff, it's great. But when it comes to express it, they struggle. So that's where the gap is.
The practical part of it, I think they struggle with that.
You cannot communicate, Pari, then you lost it. You have to communicate what you want to communicate in a manner that it create an impact in front of the interviewer. And if you're not able to do it, then you have lost the plot, because your education is leading you to that entry point where you have been called for an interview. But after that, it is your communication skills that will play a critical role to take you to the next level.
Yes, just being book smart will not help, honestly.
Not
Being
at all.
being only book smart will not really help you. That's what you
Not at all. Not at all. I completely agree, because a lot of people, if you see, they may have got best of the grades, best of the marks, but they are not as successful as some of the other who would not be getting marks. You would have seen in your education life. So some of the people who were great in studies, they were securing first positions, etc., may not be doing as well as some others when it comes to real life or professional life.
true, very true. Um, okay, so do you have any tips for youngsters, for any students, for people who are entering the real world? What would your tips be while they're entering, and a few survival tips as well?
I think few things I can talk about. One is what helped me when I was young, uh, your age, and when I started working I started working early at the age of 19.
Mm.
So one of the thing which stuck to my mind, a model. So I call it, uh, so there is a model like this, wherein number one is business acumen. So focus on number one, focus on business acumen. Business acumen is nothing but our ability to anticipate global trends, know the language of business, which is finance, P&L understanding, commercial savviness, pricing ability. So that is all part of business acumen as a skill. Second is your change management skills. So change management skills is your ability to take all the stakeholders along, your peers, your seniors, your juniors. How do you take them along? You may use anything, whether it is TQM, you use Six Sigma principles, you use Deming principles, whatever you use. So I was told that number one, focus on business acumen, as I have explained. Number two, focus on is change management skills, and number three, focus on your domain expertise. So for example, for me, my domain is HR. So my focus in terms of HR as a domain should be number three. So it was difficult at that point in time for me to understand this when I was young, but now I understand it, because after 20 years, if I'm good in succession planning or performance management or talent acquisition, there's nothing great about it. But if I'm as good as the CFO is when it comes to finance, or as good as about Six Sigma and process excellence as our vice president or OPEX is, or quality is, then people stand up and take note. So, and in the middle is your value system, that design principle you create for yourself. That these are some of the red lines which are non-negotiable. So let me, say it again. This is the model. Number one, business acumen, change management skills, domain expertise, and in the middle, your design principles. So that's one suggestion from my end. Second, I will say focus on capability building. So what happens in the corporate world? Uh, we create positions. So if you look at, there are three levels: staff, middle, and top level. So at staff, there are two, three positions. People call it executive, senior executive, super senior executive. Then they will call it management trainee, assistant manager, manager, senior manager. And similarly, moving up the value chain, they will call it assistant vice president, senior vice president, like that. Now, people, my recommendation is you don't focus on that. Focus on the capability building. So for staff level, there are set of 20 plus competencies. For example, your ability to work in teams, your 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 ability to do talk of words, your Microsoft skills. It could be Excel, it could be Office, it could be Word, your email etiquettes, those basic skills. When you go to middle management, your ability with regard to conflict resolution come into play, right? Can you resolve conflicts? Are you persuasive in your approach? How are your presentation skills? How are your coaching skills? Right? So some of that come into play. But when you go to leadership level, then your ability to mass motivate people come into play. Right? That business acumen, as I said, P&L understanding, commercial savviness, nose for talent, coaching and mentoring ability, presentation ability, uh, political astuteness. Some of those skills come into play at that level. So my view is that we should focus on the capability development, because once capability is there, your growth will happen. So instead of focusing on designation, focus on capability development across those blocks, as I said, staff, middle, and top.
Bettering
So
yourself.
that's,
Yes.
yeah. So developing yourself, because once you have a skill set, then growth will automatically happen. So these are the top two tips that comes to my mind, Pari.
Okay, wow. I think that those were really important. One more thing I want to ask you is, do you have any of these, like everyone knows that the corporate world is considered to be very harsh. So do you have any incident that at the time may have been overwhelming, but now that you look back at it, I guess laugh at it or something, an interesting incident that you had?
Right. Corporate exposure, when you look at it, since I am there for more than 2 decades there. So every second day you come across something which is we call it interesting, which tests our patience. We call it frustration resistance, uh, or our ability to deal with ambiguity. So there are multiple such things. However, when you have your design principles in place, for example, how do you take criticism, right? Or how do you take feedback? So if it is a ill-tempered tyrant and somebody has not thought through and shouted at you, then you royally ignore it, right? You give it a royal ignore. But if somebody has given you a feedback and invested time and energy, right, in ensuring that they are giving it to you and genuinely and sincerely interested in your development, then you respond accordingly. So I can talk about a model that has helped me when I was young. So what we do generally, somebody says something to us and then we say it back, we react.
Yeah.
So what I learned, instead of, let's say somebody says, Raj, you're a bad person. So one, I could say, hey, have you seen yourself? Second, I could say, hey, Pari, you are right. However, I'm afraid I'm in sync.
Okay.
Right. So so the reflection come into play. So there is somebody has said something, then instead of reacting, you reflect. And once you reflect and say something, it becomes your response. So when I look at it, whenever you have to say something, reflect and respond. So instead of react, respond. And when you do that, most of the problems are taken care of.
True. I think one of the most important problems we have in any part of our lives is that we react before we even think. So,
Yes, we shoot our, I call it like, I find a lot of people shooting their mouth before their head, which is not, or have this foot and mouth disease. So we
yes.
need to avoid it. And this simple thing, reflect. The moment you will reflect, it will not be reaction, it will be a response.
Wow, I think I had the most amazing session. I really learned a lot, and I'm sure our viewers did too. It was great to talk to you. Do you have any more advice for our viewers before we end the session today?
No, I wish everyone a great success. Times are challenging, and I remember this quote by Toffler that illiterate of 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot unlearn, learn and relearn. So if we look at the larger ecosystem, there is, because of this COVID era, there is a massive shift. Uh, so I wish all your viewers or all your students a great success in their endeavors. So thank you, Pari. It was amazing talking to you, and I also wish you a great success ahead.
Thank you so much. It
Thank,
was my pleasure to have this opportunity to talk to you and learn so much from you firsthand.
likewise. Thank you so much, Pari.
Okay, wow. I think that was truly inspiring and that I learned a lot. I hope you did as well. Now, as Mr. Gupta talked about, practical life skills and communication, I see a lot of us youngsters, we struggle with those. And to help you out, we at TalentZ are here and we're helping you connect with inspiring people. And we are giving you one on one sessions where you can learn practical life skills. So, if any of that is appealing to you, please, please, please go and follow us on Instagram. Go and check out our LinkedIn, and please subscribe to our YouTube. Thank you so much. Pari signing off from Team TalentZ.